Hey, fourth and fifth graders, maybe fourth, fifth, third, sixth. Have no idea. I don't know who's hanging out. I don't know who's watching these. I wanted to get into James chapter 1. I know I've mentioned it a couple times. We had our Easter message. We had a couple messages before that. First of all, I had asked that maybe those of you who hadn't memorized John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever would believe in him wouldn't perish, but would have everlasting life. That is the good news. They call that the gospel message in one verse. Gospel? Good news, good news, good news. Believe in Jesus, go to heaven, live forever. I want you, if you haven't, please try to memorize that, John 3:16. I know most of you have. We're going to get to the end of this message in a few minutes in James, and then we're going to talk about one more verse you can memorize. I think you have some time. I think you have some time. I think you can make some time, just a few minutes. Right now, I'm going to read James 3 or James chapter 1, starting in verse 2. It says, "My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing." What is James talking about? Trials. Trials are tough times. And he doesn't say if you fall into them, count it all joy when you fall into them. Trials happen. Trials are tough times. There are things that happen to us that come our way that in our little teeny minds don't make it. Why? I just want to have a happy life. I don't want any bad things to happen. I don't want to go through any tough times. That's how I think, selfishly, I had kind of a tough day today. I didn't really, if I'm going to be honest, and I want to be with you kids, I didn't really enjoy my day in the things by itself that happened in my day. But I know that God is the one who created this day. This is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. I know that's not always easy. It's easy to say those words. But God genuinely wants you to have joy in your heart. And James isn't alone. I mean, Paul said in chapter, let me see. Paul said in chapter 5 of Romans, he said in chapter 5 of Romans, and not only that, but we also glory in tribulations, knowing that tribulation produces perseverance, and perseverance character, and character hope. Sounds similar, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. It sounds similar to what James was saying. That's Paul. Paul's telling us to do the same thing. And Paul, you guys know, he was locked up and in jail for a very long time. He was beaten and left. He was beaten horribly. In fact, they thought he died, and he came back, and then he was floating overnight in the water, and he'd been bitten by a snake. He'd been beaten repeatedly. And he said to have joy in tribulations, not just there, but in Philippians chapter 4, to them he said, rejoice in the Lord always. And again I say rejoice. And in 1 Thessalonians 5:16, he said, rejoice at all times. That is some crazy faith. It sounds wild to us in our little teeny brains, but he wasn't, Paul wasn't alone, and James wasn't alone. It also says, Peter tells us in chapter 4, verse 13, but rejoice to the extent that you partake of Christ's sufferings, that when his glory is revealed, you may also be glad with exceeding joy. Christ's sufferings, we know what he went through. It doesn't sound like we should be real happy to go through those things, but we are Christ's children. And what James is telling us, again, to let patience here have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. Going through trials is a part of what everybody does. The Bible says it rains on the just and the unjust alike, which means it rains on people who are saved and unsaved, people who are wicked and not wicked, trying to live for Jesus and not. Maybe rain's not the best example for me anyway, because some people I know love rain. They love it. They love the rain. I love it. It's raining. This is fantastic. I grew up in the rain. I don't like the rain. I like heat. I like the sun. That's what makes me happy. I enjoy that. Now I understand the rain is good. We need rain and we need water. I get all that. But I prefer the sun, just being honest. And so maybe a better example is when you get a flat tire in your car on the road. Now I know you guys don't drive yet, but you probably have all been in a car that broke down. So let's look at it this way. Cars break down on the just and the unjust alike. In other words, I'm a Christian driving my car. It breaks down. Oh man, my car broke down. And you as kids, you're sitting in the back car. You've probably been in the back of cars that break down. And your parents are driving and they're like, oh man, our car broke down. Now what do we get? They call friends. They call relatives. Maybe they need to get a tow truck. It's happened to me. You got to get a tow truck to take your car somewhere and then get people to take you somewhere. Now that happens to the just and the unjust. Wicked people, cars break down too. They just get all mad and angry and don't understand. There's no reason or rhyme to. It doesn't seem like even as Christians, when the bad things happen in our little teeny brains, that it makes a lot of sense. Why, Lord, if you love me so much, why would bad things happen? You know, I love my own kids very much. But I'm not perfect. God's perfect. He knows what's best for us. James says once again to count it joy when we fall into trials. When, not if, because they will happen. Knowing that the testing of our faith produces patience. And then patience has its perfect work in us so that we could be complete, lacking in nothing, perfect, lacking in nothing. What happens is we go through these tough times, and when we go through them as Christians, and we acknowledge that Jesus Christ is in charge of all our days and every single day all by himself, that he knows what's best for us, the bad things and the good things. The bad things to make us stronger and have more patience and endurance. You know, there's an example pastors use all the time about how gold is purified. It's heated up in a just super hot to where it turns to liquid. And then the liquid gets so hot that the impurities in the gold float to the top. They take this thing that gets those dirty impurities off the top, and they heat it again, and they take that stuff off till it's just so pure, like glass when you look at it. And that's, going through the furnace is not a good time. Not a good time. Having that heat turned up is not a good time. It doesn't make us happy, but happy and joy are two different things. God is not saying here just to make sure you're happy. Make sure you're happy when you go through. Happiness is an emotion and it's fleeting. Joy is deep-seated. Joy means we know God's in charge. We know that whatever's happening right now in our day, if we remember that he is trying to teach us something to be stronger, that we can have joy in it, knowing that when we get to the other side, and he'll get you to the other side of it, you will be stronger and more useful in the future. Some of your friends are going through something similar a few months from now, a few years from now, and you'll go, man, I remember when that happened to me. Keep your eyes on the Lord because he'll get you through it. And in fact, this is what I learned going through it. If you're walking with the Lord, knowing that he's in charge of every day, you can rejoice knowing that he's got it. He's got your back, and he's going to get you through the trial, which reminds me of the one verse that another verse I want you to try and remember. It is, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. That's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. If we trust in the Lord with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and don't lean on our own understanding. In other words, we're going through a tough time, and we're like, this makes no sense at all. Why my car broke down? I don't have money to fix my car. How am I going to get to work to make money to fix my car? If we just rest knowing God has it figured out, he will give you the wisdom. He will give you the means to get to the other side of that trial, and he will make you stronger through it. He loves us so much. He knows what we need to grow stronger. You know, I'm not a perfect father by any means. I'm not even close to being a perfect father. And I have 4 daughters. And when I was raising them, I didn't want them to be unhappy. I didn't want them to go through anything difficult. So sometimes, and I think at this age they would acknowledge this, they would admit it. I would, rather than let them experience anything unhappy or anything hard, I would just get them, I would do it for them. I would do everything for them so it wasn't as difficult for them. And I had the right idea. I didn't want them to be unhappy or have a difficult time, but I'm an imperfect father, remember. So being imperfect, some of those times, I probably should have let them experience a little bit of a tough time. I maybe should have let them have a harder time going through some of those things and learn for themselves how to get through it, rather than know that I was just going to take care of it for them. And I know, I hope that makes sense to you guys. Because God knows what's best for us. He knows what trials or tough times we can get through. He knows what we can get through. He's not going to let us go through anything that we can't get through without Him. He knows it. And He knows what it's going to teach us through those tough times. The Bible, Mr. Rick, Teacher Rick, I saw this week on the Calvary Kids YouTube channel. Mr. Teacher Rick was at a chicken coop of his, and he was talking about stuff, and he had an egg in his hand, and he said he gets eggs from his chickens, and he said, what father, when this child asks for an egg, gives him a scorpion? In other words, my kids come up to me, they want me to mix up some eggs, maybe put it in some flour and make some crepes. And what father would take that, and give your kid a scorpion? A loving father would never do that. A loving father would never do that. God knows exactly what we need to grow strong. He knows what trials we can get through with Him. He wants us to acknowledge that He's got it. He's in charge. He has the perfect plan for our lives, whether it seems like it all the time or not, whether I'm happy my car broke down or not. He knows what I need to learn through that trial by trusting in Him. And next time anything similar happens, I know He got me through it. Or if somebody comes up to me and says, I'm going through this thing, it's crazy. I can be able to, if I've been through it, I can tell them how I got through it with Jesus. And I can help them be encouraged through it because I got through it with Jesus. So, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 is for you to remember for when we get back together. Remember John 3:16? Trust in the Lord with all your heart. In all your ways acknowledge Him. Lean not on your own understanding, and He will direct your paths. Now that was a little look it up. See how to really remember it, not sideways. You'll trust me. You'll see what I'm talking about when you look it up. But remember, James says, count it all joy when you fall into trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and lacking and nothing and complete. We're not, maybe in Christ's eyes, we're perfect. He sees what we are, the future. He sees the finished work of what we're becoming. He already sees the end of it. So He sees us as perfect with Him, in Him, when we're going to be with Him. He's making us more and more perfect while we're here. He's making us more and more perfect if we remember that He's in charge of everything that happens, good and bad, as His kids. We can say that. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope to see you very soon. We missed you very much. And until next time, try and remember Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. God bless you guys.